Last year, a quote from Head to Hands, published by University of Oxford. So please welcome David Levi Strauss.
Between this and that. Will this go up? This is from In Time, from 1971. I had to be myself 15 years ago, 10 years ago, a torrid week ago, at the beginning of this sentence. But these are all lost states, and I am forced to view them and learn them as Herodotus learned the Palaia of things, by report, by impression, by a veiled word here or there let fall by someone who presumes upon himself and me to say he knew me. I knew Kelly first in San Francisco in the 1980s, in the early 1980s, when he came into Robert Duncan's Poetics program where I was studying. I'd been reading Kelly for some time by then and getting a great deal from this reading. But what was I getting? It is difficult to get the news from poems, especially when you won't stop writing them. Some people say writing, and especially reading poetry, is useless, a waste of time. My father used to say this when he would catch me reading. Why don't you get up off your ass and do something, he'd say. Now the world has caught up with my father, and the world says that reading, and especially reading poetry, is no longer needed. But we needless few continue, and will till it's all gone. The truth is we do it for the pleasure, but out of fellow perversity I want to offer a short defense to my father, I suppose. So in defense, here are 20 or 30 things I've learned from reading Robert Kelly. You will all recognize this title as the kind that you give to someone before you have any idea what you're going to talk about, as an umbrella underneath which you can put almost anything. My other choice for a title was With Weasels and the Moon, but that is for another day. Far, far away. But in going back and rereading all of Kelly from the beginning to the present, poetry and prose over the last months, really, I did get to something that I'll only have time to point to here. First, a couple of particulars. A long time ago, I learned that poets today have to be, quote, hidden, disguised as schoolmasters and divines. Poetry tolerated as masturbation is tolerated. Laws against it too hard to enforce. That's from In Time. And very recently I learned that, quote, peeing gently really lets you hear them thinking. Releasing sphincters releases everything. We think by coming, we tell by uttering, we utter by outing, we out by letting go. That's from The Logic of the World. Always the body, and erotics of language, flesh, dream, book. Quote, difference is what we come into this veil of tears hot to have, hot to feel, peel, prong, prod, tingle, mingle, shove it in. I'm a Libra. I can't decide. I want everything. But, quote, it isn't all about sex and squirrels. The address to the reader, the singular reader, me, you, is often startlingly direct. Quote, my dear, my favorite person. For you, all of my life is work, and all my work is play, and you can read me or look away. You are my father, and my lover, and my child, and I am nothing without you. Well then, charming, sometimes ingratiating, often risking disillusion. Quote, a deep breath then. Poets out in the open, the shadowy aimlessness of the poet's motive, the driving force of everything that moves. which is close to the real burden of our responsibility. As Duncan always said, responsibility is the ability to respond to everything, always. My Kelly, you understand, is all mixed up with my Duncan, especially the Duncan of the 1980s, as we get in Kelly's Burnt Offerings. I have stood at the right hand of the sacrificer, stirring red cloth tatters into rice, red beans, barley, spelt, sweet drops, the colors, till mixed with cooking oil, it turned to fire in the fire. He chanted, hurrying things, from this condition to that, a wonder. Song is all sending. And this from the Rainmakers. Poetry tries to bring all its experience into natural grace, says Duncan, and keeps the numbers current. The swells of speech whose ordered passion compels the restless lust of mind into the presiding metaphor of dance, which here knows itself as particulate movements, studied in noticeful economy, physicist at cloud chamber, charming the incidents to hold some place in natural speech, trying to be natural, as if it really were a world we speak. In rereading Kelly, I began to draw a map, quote, to begin the preliminaries of geography, know where things are, from Armed Descent. And on this map, Duncan, I think, is there pretty much at the beginning, in that armed descent into the world around us, in that struggle to restore some aspect of the world's reality, to redeem man from the deadly innocence of not knowing where and what things are. Duncan is already there in The Alchemist. The origin, far side of a lake, is always shadow. But Kelly begins with an image, a deep image, of how it fell and came down running on her feet and in her broad skirt, visual and strong. Visual and strong, strong enough to be recalled vividly 45 years later, as if no time had passed, in a story called The Skirt in Robert's latest collection of fictions, The Logic of the World. It is an image of an unknown girl glimpsed for a few seconds from the window of a northbound 8th Avenue bus. Quote, on the sidewalk in front of a store, a girl on the pavement minding her young brothers and sisters and flirting with other kids. She was the queen of 8th Avenue, wearing a skirt of snug, smooth, cocoa-colored gabardine. And she was free. Quote, she was the freedom of the body, a terrifying, sensual freedom, because I could see, anybody could see, there was nothing she wanted to be but free. So that's where it all started. I'd never understood what deep image meant until I read that last year and saw the girl in the cocoa-colored gabardine skirt in my mind's eye. And I knew then what Kelly had been talking about. Duncan knew right away. In the HD book, Book 2, Nights and Days, Chapter 3, from 1961, he quotes Kelly to say, transformation aims at the continuum of all perceptions. Percepts are from dreams or from waking, rise from the unconscious or from the retina of the awakened eye. Poetry, like dream reality, is the juncture of the experienced with the never experienced. Poetry, like waking reality, is the fulfillment of the imagined and the unimagined. Then poetry is not the art of relating words, word to word, but the act of relating word to percept, percept to percept, image to image, until the continuum is achieved. And the progression of images constitutes the fundamental rhythm of the poem. The HD book, that secret book that we all carried around in bits and tatters for 30 years, finally published this year, 50 years after it was written and 23 years after Duncan's death. During the time of the Poetics program, 1980 to 1985, Duncan often talked about wanting to write the work of old age. He said Olson hadn't done it. But then Duncan was gone at 69. Now we have Kelly. Thank God. Thank you.